In this video, we're going to be taking a look at the process of creating a LED neon sign layout. There's some important things that we have to consider when we're doing our design work. Now, I'm going to be using CorelDRAW X6 in this video demonstration, but the process that I'm going to show you is a similar process that you could really use in any vector graphics application. So let's take a look at what we're going to be designing a sign for today. We were sent this business card, and this is the design that we want to mimic in LED neon. And so the first thing we want to do is set our design here, this business card, to the finished size of the sign. So the customer says they would like a 30-inch wide sign. So what I'm going to do is come in here and draw a line from the far left side to the far right side. And then I'm going to take a look at how big this currently is. It's currently 3.148. And so what we're looking for is we're looking to scale this so that design becomes 30. So how do we go about doing that? Well, what we have to do is come into our calculator here, and we take the size that we are looking for, which is 30, divided by the size that we have, which is 3.148, and that will give us this number, 95298. And so what that it means is that that first digit before our decimal is hundredths, and if you had another digit, that would be thousandths. So in this case, we have to scale this 953% for that to now be 30 inches. So let's give that a shot. So we're going to select everything and come up here and scale this to 953%. And now when we select that line, we'll see how big it is. Look at there, dead on 30 inches. Surprised about that, but that's dead on 30 inches. All right, so with that scaled to the size that we ultimately would like, now we have to go ahead and make our neon sign. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to right click here, and the first thing I'm going to do is lock that bitmap so I can't accidentally move it, and I think I will go into wireframe mode. Now this text, this little part down here on the G, there's different parts of this text that is a little bit difficult, overly difficult to recreate in LED neon. So we would use a more basic font. So I'm going to grab my text tool here and just type out by Maggie, like so. And then I'm going to go ahead and scale it up so it matches more or less. We're just going to pull it over here so it matches like that. And we'll pull it up here so it matches like that. Scale it down a little bit. You can see it's a little bit taller than the original. So something about like that. So it's similar to the original, but not absolutely exact. But this is something that we can replicate fairly easily in LED neon. So the next thing to do is to go ahead and draw this out, because we really can't use it in this format. So we're going to grab our 2-point line tool. There are basically 3 tools we could use. Our 3-point curve tool, our 2-point line tool, and our B-spline tool. Now in this video demonstration, we're going to strictly focus on our B-spline tool and our 2-point line tool. So if we're using a straight line, then we're going to use our 2-point line tool. Okay? So I typically would go through and take care of all my straight lines. So let's see what else we got. So our eye here would be straight. This would be a straight line segment. This would be a straight line segment. You could even say our G would have a straight line segment up to that point. Now everything else in the design pretty much has a curve to it. So then I'm going to come into my B-spline tool here, and we're just going to click, and what you'll do is you'll click in the center of your letters, more or less. Now when we're in our B-spline tool, we cannot zoom in and out. It's one of my pet peeves here in CorelDRAW. So you would just have to go to the document bounds to scroll. And when you're done making a line, you just double click. So if we come over here to our M, for example, we'll click here. We'll come all the way down here because that's more or less a straight line. And then double click. Okay? And then that will end it. Okay? And then, because we already have the one line, we'll just move it over to create the second line. Okay, so again, B-spline tool for our A. So you see there, we're just clicking right there in the middle. Double click to end it. Then we'll start anew. So when we're creating our artwork, we're creating it with the idea in mind that this is how many LED segments it's going to take to recreate this letter. Okay. Now this is a little bit different here because we have an existing shape. But we want to add to this. So now we can go to our B-spline tool and we'll start right here from the end here. We'll grab our shape again, go back to our B-spline tool. There we go. So this we will eventually make all one segment. Now we won't copy that over yet, but we won't duplicate our efforts because we're gonna adjust that G a little bit here in just a moment. So we'll go back to our B-spline tool here. All right, so now what do we have to do with our G? Well, remember we have this segment that we drew with our 2-point line tool and then this segment here with our B-spline tool. What we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and tell you what let's do. Let's go ahead and get rid of our text because we don't need that anymore. But let's go ahead and select everything that we just created and let's go to the Arrange menu and choose Convert to Curves. So all of our B-splines are now curves. I did forget to add our little hook on our Y, so let me do that real quick. Okay, so now we've got that taken care of. So back to our G here. So we're going to select our vertical line and the B-spline, and then we're going to combine those two things. And then to actually make that one curve where those two came together, we have to select those two nodes and click the Join Two Nodes option. And now this really is, you can see now it really is one curve. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and reduce those nodes. We don't need all those nodes. And then we're going to change that node to a smooth node. So now that we've modified our G, actually we're going to modify this while we're at it. Let's go ahead and reduce those nodes too. And now we'll go ahead and just copy it over. Okay? So now we have the by Maggie. Now, several of these things were created with B-splines. And anything that's created with B-splines has an excessive amount of nodes. You see all those nodes? So we will go ahead and reduce those nodes on those points. So what I would probably do is come in here, select the whole lot, and we'll just do a 10 reduction on everything. Actually, what we could do here is combine that, and then you can do that. Okay, Now this is technically now 1, but then you can just right click and break it apart. And now it's not. Each piece is back to the way we created it. Okay? So, with that said, we have to really take a hard look at what we just created. So, to simplify this process a little bit for us, I am going to show you how this tool works that we created. And what we need to look at is how big this actually is. So, for example, let's take I. If we look at I, you can see that we are currently at 1.27 and we need to be at 1.105. So that is close enough where we're only off by maybe an 1/8 inch. So that's probably okay. But what about this one? This one here, this is the big part of this 3.03. We need to be at 3.06. That's probably okay. This needs to be a little bit bigger because we're currently at 0.94. We need to be 1.05. What's this one? This is off by a lot. This is bad. So this is currently at 2.5 and we need to be at 3.065. That's a big difference. This one here is at 2.73 by 3.065. Again, that's a pretty significant difference. That one's pretty close. That one's pretty close. This one, it's relatively close. But yes, this is not going to work all that great. And this is a real telltale right here. So it's saying that this M is 1 segment and that this M is 2. Well, I can tell you from experience that we cannot recreate the look of this text if this M piece is a single segment. We just can't do it. It just won't look right. That needs to be at least 2 segments. So, back over here, this to me was the biggest challenge. If I go over in my settings tab, we're not going to be adding a wire margin. So that will help us some. But if you look at this, it says we're at 2.52 and we need to be 2.94. And so what that tells me is that this text is too small to be replicated in 6mm neon, LED neon. So we have to scale this so it's at least 2.94. But we need to know what the scale factor is. So remember, we take what we have and what we need divided by what we have, and that will give us a scale factor. So let's just do that quick. So we need 2.94, and we have divided by 2.52 gives us 117%. We have to scale this design 117%. So I'm going to unlock our bitmap, select everything that we just created, and we're going to scale this by 117%. Okay. Now, if we click on this, we know that this will be really close to 2.94, which is great. But what about the M over here? What is that? That is at 1.49 and we need 1.96. And so we're still off by quite a bit there. So in order to not distort the overall image, what we really need to do is we need to scale it based off of this. Okay? Because we can't add, we almost need to add a 1/2 inch to this, and we don't have the space to do that. Like on the G, if we need to add a half an inch to the G, we could make the tail of the G a little bit longer or something. But here we don't have the extra room. So this is really got to be the deciding factor here. So what we're going to do is we're going to come in here to 195. We need 1.96. We have 1.49. So what do we need to scale it now? Let me just double check that. That doesn't seem right. 1.96 divided by 1.49. It's not 700%. There we go. 132%. So now we need to scale this 132% more. In certain designs, you're going to have to do this. This just happened to be one of them, so I thought it would make for a really good demonstration. So now this segment is exactly 1.96. Perfect. And this segment is 3.02, but we need 2.94. So let me explain what we're actually talking about here, because this is really an important thing that I don't see talked about anywhere. So in regards to LED neon, there's basically essentially two standards. Now there's more than two, but essentially when you're out shopping for LED neon, um, what we're concerned about is the space that we can cut the neon. Now the LED neon we sell, the space is typically 0.98 or 2.5 centimeters. That's kind of the industry standard. When you're looking at cuttable LED neon, almost everybody's at 2.5 centimeters. Now, we also have an LED neon that is 1 centimeter cut. Okay, and so, of course, you would think, well, that would even be better because we could be even more precise. And yes, that's true. That is true. But the cost of that LED neon, where it's a 1 centimeter cut, is basically double what the 2.5 centimeter cut is. And so, from that perspective, that's a bit of a drawback. Now, once you really understand production and some of the different things you can do, you can kind of get by with the 2.5 centimeter LED neon. Now, typically, your designs are going to have to end on a 1-inch segment. So, like for our M here is a perfect example. That vertical piece of our M has to be 2 inches. It can't be an inch. It can't be an inch and a half. It can't be an inch and 3/4. It has to be either 1 or 2. And that is true with all of our segments, okay? So all of our segments have to land on a 1-inch increment. And when you're thinking about that, you're like, well, God, how do I do that? It almost doesn't seem possible that that you could even do that without massively changing the design. But the reality of it is, if you look at this what we just created, if I select my first one, you could see 2.72 versus 2.9. It takes 3 segments. Okay, so yes, we need to make this a 1/4 inch bigger, but that's easy enough to do because we could just drag that line up a little bit, and now it's exactly 2.94, and you didn't really see any change in the actual design itself because we moved that up a 1/4 of an inch. On the B here, you see we're at 4.06, so we need to be 3.92. That's a very, very minimal adjustment. So we could literally just come in here and pull that down a little bit, and you can see we're very close to where we need it to be. Or we could pull this B in a little bit. That will shorten it up, and you can see now we're basically, we've got to pull it out a little bit. So that's at 3.95. It's 3.92. That's close enough. You're talking about 3/10 of an inch. That's plenty close. This piece here, we are at 3.3, and we need to be at 2.94. Okay, so now here, yes, we're way too big. Okay, and then if you select this one here, you can see we're at 2.04. We need to be at 1.96. So we'll hit trim. We trim that down, and let's go ahead and trim this one down. And you can see now this is a little bit. When we did that, we modified it a little bit too much, right? So that's okay because we can just trim off the bottom. The design itself doesn't really change much, but the line segment does fall exactly on where we need it to. Okay. Again, this is 3.02. We need 2.94. Honestly, I wouldn't even worry about that difference because it's so insignificant. It's really not that big a deal. So these have. So does it need to be dead on? No. It doesn't need to be dead on, but it does need to be pretty close. Now, okay, here's a good example where we're off by quite a bit. I'm going to hold my control key down, and what we're going to do is we're going to nip a little bit off the bottom and top. And now you can see we're exactly at 2.94, but it didn't change our design. This is at 3.23. We need to be 2.94. So on this one, probably what we would do is just have it extended, and look at that. See? So it didn't change a whole lot, and we were able to get where we needed to be. So I'm not going to go through that whole thing with you, because really our first stage is just creating a mock-up. Then when we get final approval of the mock-up, then we will come and fine-tune and finesse the design from there. Okay? So what we've learned up to this point, I'm going to go ahead and right-click on my bitmap and lock it again. What we've learned up to this point is the one part of the design I was really concerned with, which was the by Maggie. That we've got locked in. That's literally as small as we can make it. So that is a fixed area there. So I'm going to pull over a guideline here, and I'm just going to show you at this point how wide this design is. So from guideline to guideline, so you can see now we're at 46 inches. Well, that is considerably bigger than what the customer requested. So now what? Well, now what we're going to do is something a little bit different here. So let's go ahead and grab our 2-point line tool again. And let's just go ahead and create our stitch text. And I'll show you how we're going to fix this. So there's our T. So we're going to copy over our T, obviously. And then we're going to have our I here. Copy that over. And then our H. And then our H. Our E. And our D. So that takes care of all of those. And then we'll switch over to our B-spline tool. And we'll just come in here. Double click to end that. However we want our C to be. And don't worry about it if it's not perfect, like that wasn't perfect, because we can always come back in and edit that. So that's not even a big deal. We can edit that quite easily, actually. Okay, there's our S. Let's see. Okay, the rest of them are straight line segments. So we'll come in here. I am going to copy this over to our E, and then make it a little bit smaller here. And we're going to move this up here, and then this down here, and that will take care of stitched. So we're just going to keep going here. We'll go ahead and make our needle, and then we will go ahead, I'm going to use a different tool now, which is our 3-point curve tool, and create our thread with that. When you get more used to the drawing tools here in CorelDRAW, you'll be able to take advantage of some of these other tools, these drawing tools, because they're a little bit quicker to use, but they do take a little bit more finesse on knowing how to use them. And again, we don't have to get it perfect the first time out, because we can always make some minor little adjustments once we get our initial design done here. We're just using that as a guide to get it close. Okay, so that pretty well takes care of our design. So let's move this over away from our bitmap, and now we've got to go to work because we've got to change some things, because currently this thing is 46 inches wide, and that's not going to work. We need to get this closer to what the customer actually wants, which is roughly a 30-inch design. So I'm going to propose we scale this down and give him a 36-inch design. This thing needs to be scaled down just a little bit more. So we need this to be about, just a little bit smaller, really. Actually, we can move this in towards our needle, and we can move this in towards our needle, and that will help us maybe not have this in quite so much. That'll work. That'll be better. So you can see we're at 33. That's good. I'm happy with that. Okay, so now our design's at 33. Now, there is one thing to check here. I'm not concerned about the thread or the needle, but I am concerned about our text, just to make sure that we are somewhere in the ballpark of where we need to be for our LED neon. So I'm going to click S, 6.34 to 5.88. Well, that's not ideal. 2.63, we need to be 2.94. This is 1.76, we need to be at 1.96. So I'm just going to stop right there because I'm not too satisfied. This has to be, this is quite a bit of difference. So let's go ahead and figure out our scale factor here. And we're going to have to scale that stitch text. So we're going to go to 1.96 divided by 1.76. It's going to give us a scale factor of 111%. So let's go ahead and scale that to 111%. And whatever that becomes is whatever that becomes. We will make it work. Okay, so it did pop up just a little bit, but not too serious. And that gives us our overall design of, we're still under 36 inches there. I am going to squeeze that out just a little bit, and we're going to call that good. Now, if I select these, you can see we're at 7.03. We need to be at 686, so that's easy enough to modify. We're at 2.92. We need to be 2.94. That's good. 568. We need to be at 588. We could fix that, and so on and so on. So I'm happy with this, the way it looks. As far as this, I'm confident we can recreate in LED neon now. So what we need to do is let's add a stroke. So we're going to do, we're going to show it as 6mm LED neon. So everything is 6 millimeters. It's the most common. So that's all 6 millimeters. We're going to do this in green though, because that's what the customer asked for. And then we're going to do everything else in clear neon. So I represent that in a very light gray for right now. Okay. I think I just selected white. My bad. So there we go. All right. So now we have all of that in light gray. So now the next thing is we're going to copy this, and we're going to click on Add Backer Board. Now, sometimes you'll get unexpected results here, and I'm glad we did get those unexpected results because sometimes you just do. So I'm going to undo that and go back in there again and Shift Add Backboard, because that will add us an inch around our design. So that's good. That you can see it. It did kind of give us an unexpected result here. And that just happens from time to time. I can't really explain it. It's a weird Corel Draw thing. So we will just select this portion, and we will go ahead and add a contour. Let's go to wireframe mode here. So let's go ahead and group that together. And then we will add a 1-inch contour to the outside. Doesn't like it for some reason. We only want to do 1 inch. Okay. Well, this happens sometimes. It does weird things to us. So let's go ahead and do this. So we're going to ungroup this. What in the world? So we will ungroup this. Go to our object manager here. Okay. I see there is a contour group applied. So what we're going to do is we're going to ungroup this again. And then we're going to weld that together. And then we will go ahead and apply contour of 1 inch. Just a weird little anomaly, and then we're going to get rid of this. So, all right. So now we're going to come back over here. So this is what we're left with here. And what we want to do is we want to just kind of clean up our backer board to show the customer. So all the islands, what we call islands, we get rid of all of those. And then when we have all these little bump, we try to get rid of as much of that as we can. So let's go ahead and weld these two together. Okay. So let's start down here. I think it'll be the easiest thing. So we're going to grab our rectangle tool, and we're going to come all the way up to the top of that. Select those two and weld those two together. We will go ahead and delete that. Okay, and on the bottom here, we'll kind of do the same thing. We're going to select our lowest most point, which is about right there. We're going to bring this all the way over and weld those two things together. And then we'll come up here. We will just pull this down and over. And let's go ahead and weld that together. And then right down here, bring this in. Select that and weld that together. And you can just see how we just kind of straighten all that up a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and delete all of those nodes. Maybe pull that out a little bit. And I think that will become our backer board. So then I will go ahead and add some dimensions to this to show the customer that this is going to be our finished design. And then we can go ahead and export the design as a JPEG file, whatever, and then we will be good to go as far as that goes. So we will be able to send this off to the customer for approval, and then we can move on to the next stage of where we would go in and modify this to take our LED neon with the exact number of segments it needs to be. So I hope that helped you out. I hope you kind of understood the process a little bit better. Thanks for watching.